After rereading every chapter with the Gorosei in it, I found a few interesting details that may change everything we know about the Five Elders. One thing is obvious. Oda has planned these characters very well, and is clear even without observing them. Oda introduced the Five Elders in chapter 233 nearly 20 years ago, and he knew for sure that they would one day be the final villains in One Piece. They hold the highest positions in the world government after all. There may be some characters that Oda did not plan at the start, such as the Supernovas, for example. Oda's editor made him add these 11 characters at Sabaody to make the arc more exciting, but I am sure he planned the whole story of characters like Shanks, Dragon, Blackbeard, and the Five Elders from the start. That's why they're so complicated, and that's why even after revealing their names, forms, and abilities, there are still so many questions about their origins, inspiration, and immortality. One detail I have not seen anyone talking about after chapter 1111 is how each Gorosei has some kind of elemental power. We saw Saturn's poison abilities and we connected it to his Yokai form. Then, in chapter 1110, it was clearly revealed that Nejuro could freeze Pacifista. We don't know why he's able to do that, and surprisingly we did not pay much attention to that either. But now we saw lightning around Mars and fire around Warcury. This is not some kind of coincidence anymore. For example, Warcury is short-tempered and fires up easily. In chapter 1053, he was the one screaming at the Marines to change Luffy's picture, and in the current chapter, he was the first one who got enraged after seeing Luffy and the Giants together. Him being a fire element makes a lot of sense, but the confusing part is here. These 5 planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, represent Wu Jing, also known as Chinese philosophy. Wu Jing, usually translated as the 5 phases or 5 agents, is a 5-fold conceptual scheme used in many traditional Chinese fields of study. The agents are connected to the planets, aka the Gorosei, so them having some elemental powers is not strange. However, in Wu Jing, fire is associated with the planet Mars, and in this chapter we saw that he had lightning around him. On the other hand, his yokai, Itsumade, is also known for breathing fire. Water is associated with the planet Mercury. Saint Warcury's first name, Wu, may also come from Wota, the Japanese pronunciation of water. Mercury is also called the water planet. An interesting fact about Warcury is that his appearance is inspired by the late Soviet president Mikhail Gorbachev. Both have noticeable birthmarks, and Gorbachev's birthmark was often compared to different islands, such as the Siberian archipelago and even South America. So it could be a cool detail for Saint Warcury, aka a water person, to have an island-shaped birthmark on his forehead. On the other hand, we saw fire around him, and as you saw, he is short-tempered and not calm like water. Venus, also known as the gold planet, represents metal among the 5 Chinese elements, which fits Nejuro perfectly because he is the only swordsman among the 5 elders, but at the same time, we saw him using ice powers. I'm sure you get what I mean. Each Gorosei is somehow connected to at least 2 elements, and they don't even have Logia devil fruits. They may not have devil fruits at all, and even if they do, it's clear that they are Zoan users. But why do they have elemental powers as well? For this, we must observe the Gorosei's forms and the inspiration behind them. The consensus regarding the Gorosei's true forms is that they are all based on yokai, and while most of them are, this isn't entirely true. Let's start with Saint J. Garcia Saturn first, since we've known for a while the identity of his form. It's something that people have been theorizing about since its first appearance in chapter 1094. Gyuki, also known as Ushioni, is a yokai from the folklore of Western Japan, and its appearance is pretty much that of Saturn in his full beast form, a spider with the heart of an ox. Ushioni have brutal, savage personalities, and they enjoy killing and eating humans, which lines up pretty well with Saturn's overall disposition towards humans. He thinks of them as insects, lesser than he, and has no trouble killing them or them dying, and judging by Kuma's backstory, he enjoys torturing them. Ushioni also can spit poison, much like what we saw with Saturn's ability to produce acidic poison. There is a legend that says when a traveler makes eye contact with the Ushioni, they cannot avert their gaze. The person's soul or energy is drained and they die. We have seen Saturn use this ability on multiple people people. Do not be surprised if Saturn reveals a new form soon, as Ushioni are also often depicted as yokai which have the head of an ox and the body of an oni. They look like a minotaur. One of the silhouettes that we saw in chapter 1085 looks a lot like a minotaur as well. Itsumade is known as Eerie Bird, which appears over the places where there is a lot of suffering and death. It just keeps flying in circles all night long, and it's believed that it's summoned by the suffering of the people. So if anything, we should expect Mars to have sound-based powers alongside fire-based ones, as Itsumade are known for breathing fire. Additionally, we saw lightning around him, so this creature is really frightening. It was said that one of these birds was killed by a master archer when he shot the bird with Kaburaya. He went on to become a famous warrior. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's very similar to the goal Usopp has, to become a brave warrior of the sea, and he is the closest we have to an archer right now. In the case of Saint Topman Warkuri, I think he's based on Maucus, a Celtic boar or swine god who is identified with the Roman god Mercury. Design-wise, Hawkeye is clearly based on a wild boar or a warthog. Princess Mononoke prominently features two boar gods by the name of Nago and Okoto, which are known as the guardians of the forest, and even in One Piece with the Wano arc, there is a giant boar which Odin cuts in half that is known as the mountain god. That's why I think appearance-wise, Warkuri is based on Fengshi, a demon from Chinese mythology which resembles a boar and which is known as a symbol of violence and greed. Since boars are often depicted as powerful and covered in mud, Warkuri's abilities may have something to do with Earth. Often, physically strong characters are shown as having a connection to Earth. We also saw fire around him, and according to Wu Jing, Mercury is associated with water. Saint Ethan Baron V. Nejuro is easily the coolest looking Gorosei. The skeleton horse look, coupled with the centaur hybrid form wielding a sword, is easily one of the most badass things Oda has ever drawn. There are two yokai that could be an inspiration for Nejuro's form. They are Oxhead and Horseface, also known as Gozu and Mezu respectively, and they serve as the guardians of the underworld. Furthermore, when it comes to his abilities, Nejuro can be seen freezing the pacifistas that he has cut, which bears striking resemblance to Brook's ability to freeze the things he cuts, called Chill of the Underworld. The continuous motif of the underworld, the same freezing ability, and the skeleton look makes me wonder if there is any connection between Brook's devil fruit and whatever Nejuro is supposed to be. Saint Shepherd Jupiter is definitely not based on a yokai. There really is no yokai that could fit into his appearance, and additionally, he is the only one who has his name written in katakana, while the other four have their names written in kanji, so he is by far the biggest outlier here. However, the imagery of a giant worm that digs around is not that uncommon. Most recently, the movie adaptation of the Dune novel came out, and it prominently features giant sandworms. The novel it is based on dates back to 1965, and since then we have had many such iterations in many different media, including Japanese. If you ever read Bleach, then you might be familiar with the smaller character of Bawabawa, which is a dead ringer for a sandworm in its appearance, and it also lives in a giant desert that is Hueco Mundo. But his name isn't sandworm, it's sandworm. Worms are serpentine dragons, normally of European origins. The word used to mean all dragons, but in modern use it is reserved for dragons with worm-like qualities. A long body which is either legless or with small legs, so it's possible Jupiter is meant to be more of a dragon rather than a worm, although him being a worm does fit his title of warrior god of agriculture more. For now, I have listed all the powers and abilities that the Gorosei have already shown, and the ones that they may exhibit in the future, and it's clearly a lot. I have only one explanation for this. In a previous video, I mentioned that I believe that the 5 elders were human 800 years ago, and that they then sold their souls to Imu, who granted them immortality. This is how we can explain their age differences and the scars they have, even though they can't be damaged. Also, the Gorosei can summon each other and communicate telepathically. This leads me to believe that they all share some kind of power that comes from one source, and that source is Imu. After being immortal for 800 years, the Gorosei don't think about themselves as human. They think that they are gods and perceive humans as ants. However, they still have a little humanity in them. While reading the chapters, I noticed 3 interesting details. Compared to the other elders, Warkuri has appeared to display shreds of conscience regarding the lives of his subjects. When Imu ordered for the Leloucha kingdom to be annihilated, Warkuri Workery brought up the fact that the kingdom was heavily populated. However, he had no qualms about going through with it once Imu reaffirmed the decision. And in recent chapters, after Saturn transformed into his full form, Sanji mentioned that he lost all of his humanity. Did Sanji sense that Saturn was a human before that? As we know, characters in One Piece can sense such things. For example, Luffy and Zoro knew that Teach was different when they met him for the first time. Speaking of Teach, after Blackbeard ate his second devil fruit, we got a scene where the 5 elders were discussing this event, and Workery said that there is no record of any man before him successfully consuming 2 devil fruits. I think this is an important detail. He said any man and not anyone. I even checked the Japanese translation. Now, why is this important? As I already mentioned, most likely the elders were human 800 years ago. After becoming immortal, we saw that even explosions can't kill them. It's also known that a human's body explodes after eating 2 devil fruits. If explosions do nothing to Gorosei, why would they not eat 2 or more devil fruits? They have full and half transformations like Zoan devil fruit users and have elemental powers similar to Logia users. It could be explained with Paramecia type devil fruits as well. Also, Teach has deep knowledge about the One Piece world, and we still don't know how. For example, he read the devil fruit encyclopedia as a kid and he knew exactly which devil fruit he wanted. Later, he was very sure that eating the second devil fruit would not harm him. Also, how does he know how to steal devil fruit powers? I believe he read some taboo books as a child, and he also found out the truth about eating the second devil fruit. How would he do that so surely if no one had ever done that before him? That's why I believe the Gorosei were the first people to eat multiple devil fruits. Most likely, Teach does not know the truth about the elders, but he could have found this fact about some random people in books that were written 800 years ago. In short, I believe that the real devil in One Piece is Imu. Gorosei are humans that sold their soul to Imu and became immortal. Immortality gave them the chance to eat more than 1 devil fruit, and that's why each elder has shown a few abilities that are not connected to each other. That's it for today. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and if you're wondering how the Egghead arc will end and what Vegapunk is going to reveal, you can watch this video right here. Thanks for watching.